Welcome back to the Martial Arts Mindset Podcast. My name is Rachel Rose, and today I have a very, very special guest with me. He comes all the way from Liverpool, standing at a massive 6'3" in the cruiserweight division with a record of 13-2. I welcome today Nathan Quarless. Hi Nathan, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Joe.
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. So I was saying to someone yesterday, it feels like your last fight was like 8 weeks ago, and it was literally what, 10 days ago?
Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was actually not that long ago at all, was it?
no,
How are you
just
feeling?
still reflecting from it. Yeah, it's a bit frustrating at the same time. I know I could have done a lot better in there, especially my feet. Diabolical, really, that my feet were so slow. I was just trying to plant my feet as much as I could, and I've I've sort of prided myself on having fast feet, and they were extremely slow, and it stopped me at times getting in. Um, But in the fight, I thought I was, the aggressor. I thought I was, you know, the one coming forward from the power shots and landing the power shots. And I think in the end, I just got um, kidded in a way. That nothing really was coming back at me with any sort of um, ferocity or anything like that. I just think I got kidded, and he had a good game plan.
Why do you think you were trying to plant your feet more when that's not normally your kind of way of being?
I think because it's the first time and probably since I've been a professional that I've come into the ring injury free. The past 2.5 years have been a nightmare for me. I mean, I hadn't boxed for 15 months previous to the fight I've just been in. I had last year I had detachment of the bicep in the right bicep in the middle of a fight. And then in the December I had an elbow operation. And then the fight after Vidal Riley, um,
Mhm.
I detached my left bicep. So I've had three operations in 2.5 years, and I've had two fights. So I've had more operations than I've had fights, and it's been hard. It's been hard, sort of. When you haven't boxed for so long, do you think you're ever going to get back in the ring? And I just think that because I had good people around me last year, we got back into training around July. And then we were getting ready for Century title fight, and three times it fell through. First time was I picked up a niggle, and then the other two times he picked up. Well, he got suspended by the board for failing his medical, and then he ended up having to retire, I think. So last year was just a bit of a write off, but I felt good in myself, and obviously the operation at the end of the year was something that I chose to do. Um, in like the Vidal Riley fight and stuff. I didn't even have a right hand really. In sparring, I kept like overextending the elbow, and in the end, I just was sparring with basically one hand, using my jab and stuff. And I genuinely thought I could jump in the ring with Vidal Riley, 50% and beat him. And I underestimated him a little bit, and I don't take nothing away from being beat by Vidal Riley because he's a brilliant fighter. But I think just in terms of like mindset, I've always had a pretty good mindset, and then in this fight, I really did feel strong. I felt powerful, and it's probably the first time I felt like that.
Do you think in a strange and backwards sort of way, being able to observe where the issues lie actually is useful and helpful? Because is it not harder when you observe the fight and you think, I don't know how I lost that? Whereas actually, if you look and you're like, well, I know why. And then you can go away and come back to the next one with a fresher mind. Does that help?
It does in a way, but I'm massively kicking myself at times because I think if I would have just quickened my feet up and even like saying to the referee about us leaving his hand out and pushing it on my head and stuff like that. I think without him doing that, I would have been able to get in a lot faster. But there was times in the fight when I did really feel I was picking up the rounds, and because I was the aggressor, I was the front foot fighter, and a lot of shots that come back at me, they were getting blocked, and I was trying to show that to the judges. It's like if I block a shot, I'd like lift my hand up to say like that's been caught, And then obviously the scorecards were massively wide, and um, I just think sometimes, well, I do know now when you go into the likes of London and stuff like that, you've got to really dominate. And I was probably thinking I was picking up the rounds. There was times in the corner when they saying, "Come on, you need to pick it up," and I was like, "Well, am I not winning this fight?" And then uh, towards the end, yeah, we just was a bit frustrating. But we'll learn from it, and we'll make sure next time that we are throwing the more punches and going through the gears more, because I was a little bit at one pace throughout the fight.
Also, I mean, I did actually talk to John about it and saying, imagine being 6'3" and coming into a fight short, like being the shorter fighter
Yeah,
at 6'3". That's nuts. Like John is huge. Like 6'6" is large. There are not that many. Obviously you've got someone like Tyson Fury and you've got somebody like Martin Bakoli, but there are fewer people at that height. So that must have been. I mean, obviously you would have trained for it and planned for it and have had the understanding of it ahead of the time. But in terms of actually being with someone who's 6'6", it's not like your everyday sparring partner is going to be that large, right?
yeah, and I think that one of the other ones is 6'6" southpaw as well. I'd never boxed a southpaw before as a pro or amateur. So the first half of camp, we were just literally just drilling stuff. And that's why I think I'm a little bit disappointed with my feet, because we were working on getting in quick and letting shots go, where I chose to really try and plant my feet and assert dominance in the fight, trying to throw the big shots, but that ultimately led to me throwing ones and twos rather than threes and fours and fives, and I think that ended up costing me the fight.
So did you change the game plan while you were in the ring to plant your feet? Was that a decision that happened sort of on the fly?
Yeah, it just happened
Yeah.
in the fight, because I think at the very start, he come out and I thought he looked like he's going to try and take the center, and I thought, well, there we go, and I planted my feet in, and I remember throwing a big shot and then two big shots, and then he went towards his back foot then, and I think it panned out, and uh, I let him get into his comfort zone where I should have been pushing into him and letting shots to the body go and stuff like that. Because when I did throw body shots, they were landing, but unfortunately they were just singles. And I was just trying to throw as hard shots as I could. And I'm not usually doing that. I'm usually throwing a few more punches than that. So it was, again, good experience, 15 months out the ring. And, I thought on another night, possibly could have got the decision, just being like the front foot fighter and the one pressing the fight, and not allowing him to come on his front foot and block on the shots. But that's something that we'll learn from and move on from.
Well, like you said as well, 15 months out of the ring is a long time and ring rust is a thing. And sometimes it's just that first one to remind yourself, what's your game plan? How do you fight well? What feels good to you? Can really sort of like, reignite the next steps. I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah,
you're hoping to get another fight in the next sort of 6 months or so.
I'm hoping to get two in. I want to fight in July. Well, I'm back in training now. I'm waiting. I have to wait for a phone call. Or hopefully fight. Yeah, hopefully fight in July on one of my manager shows, and then get out again in September. I want to obviously try and stay active now. I've been inactive for a long time. I had when I did the left bicep. I went straight in and fought Vidal in the September. I did the bicep in the March, and then after the Vidal fight, I had the fight, and in the fight, detached my bicep. So since 2020, when was the Vidal fight? 2023? Or was it 2000? Yeah, 2022, wasn't it? So since 2022, I've had three fights. It's just not been active enough. And now I finally feel like I'm fit, I'm healthy, I feel strong. I just want to push on with my career now and start moving back up through the ranks.
That makes sense. Is there anybody that you've got your eye on? Not in like it doesn't necessarily have to be in like in a call out way, but just in like people you'd like to compete against.
Yeah, I'd like to fight Sheb Clark. Um, Not against him or anything like that. I wanna. obviously I've failed now twice at the English title, which is frustrating, especially the last fight because I really do think I could have won that quite comfortably. Not against John, but I just think I allowed him to get comfortable in there, even though I thought it was pick up the rounds. But yeah, Chef Clark, we boxed as amateurs, in the ABA semi-finals. In a close fight, he beat me, and obviously he went to the Olympics the year after. So, just I'd like to mix it back in with him, and obviously that's a fight that would push me through massively back up the rankings. He needs a win because he's just come off two defeats from Vidal Riley and the fight previously for the European. So maybe it works well for both of us to, you know, get back on with our careers. And I feel like even though I am 29, I've sort of got one last crack at the sport, and I just want to try and do everything right now and get in the right type of fights. And like I said, push on.
Absolutely. So let's just take a step back in time for a little bit and let's go back to early days, Nathan, in boxing. What was it that got you into boxing when you were younger or in your early years or earlier years?
I've always done it. Um, I always like trained with my dad and stuff like that. Obviously, we come from a boxing family. Um, and growing up in Liverpool at the time where we lived was a racist area, and we were a mixed race family. And we were, I learned to fight pretty quickly. And my dad was always on my case. You can't be shown any weakness in the streets and stuff like that. So I always had an understanding of fighting, and then I think it was like in secondary school, year seven or year eight, I'd stopped playing football, and then I was just wanting to just jump on the Xbox when I get home from school. And my dad come into my room and said, "Listen, you're not sitting here all day, every day after school, just sitting on the Xbox. You're gonna have to do something. You're gonna have to go back into running with the Liverpool Harriers, go back to football, or you can try boxing." And I thought, well, I've always liked training boxing, and I got into it and joined the Golden Gloves when I was about 13, and I stayed there till I was 15. And then it was when I went to the Solly, then I really started taking it seriously. And then obviously a few years later, when I got into sixth form, I didn't really want to carry on with my education and stuff like that. So once I finished in sixth form, I didn't opt in to go to university, and I sort of said it was a bit of a wild decision at the time because I was only under 10 fight novice that I was going to try and take boxing to the next level and sort of dedicate my life to it. And I did that, and my dad backed me. And I started doing little bits of work as a support worker just to keep the income in whilst training Monday to Saturday morning. And I'd work from Saturday late morning right through until Sunday night. And that was it for me, really, with the boxing.
That's really nice. That's a really cool story. And I think it's I find that people do have stories behind their stories. So the fact that you learned how to fight because you needed to learn how to protect yourself is like a really shitty reason to have to do it. But it's interesting how it can put a strength and a fire into you, and then that thing can
Yeah.
become your whole existence. Um, what was the kind of the turning point that made you think, like, what was the moment you thought, I could really do this? Like, I could do this for a living.
Um, I'm not sure. I don't think there was one. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't want to go to sixth form anyway. Um, and I was just like pissing about in school and stuff like that, and not really taking things seriously. And then I picked up a few wins as an amateur. I got to semi final in the novices and got massively robbed. Should have won it that year. Um, and then from there, I just said, you know what, I think I might have something, and just kept it going. And I gave myself like 2 years, working with my dad and then boxing. If I hadn't like propelled into like elite level championships and stuff like that, then I'd just go into like a proper job and stuff like that. And I started performing well, and I think it was like in 2016 I picked up like 5 wins on the bounce. I won the North title, which was a belt series. I'm not sure if they still do it in the amateurs. I got to the quarterfinals in the ABAs, semi-finals in the ABAs, and I got um, I got onto like the England talent scheme. And unfortunately, with the amateurs, I just for some reason I didn't want to do the England talent scheme. I got accepted onto like the pathway squads, and just I chose to keep working. And that was probably things to do with my life at the time. I needed to get money in, and then I started thinking about turning pro at around 22. I got to the ABA semis, got beat by Chev in the fourth. Maybe it's time to try me on as a professional. Probably was a little bit too early. Um, if you go back and look at my first fight, I look massively underdeveloped. Um, but obviously by like my third fight, I started picking up some good wins. And obviously I'm still here today.
I think also like we can always look back and think, oh, maybe I should have, but actually you did it exactly when you did it and you're here now. So
Yeah,
sometimes it's like just you can observe that maybe it needed a bit of this, that, and the other, but actually you did really well and you've got to this point and you've still got years under your belt. So it's not like it was too premature and it didn't work. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
was might have just been a bit stumbly at the beginning, which is, you know, happens to people, it just does happen. Also, I think there can be something to be said for having early onset difficulties rather than like you notice it sometimes when people have like a really clean trajectory on the way up and then something
yeah,
happens and it completely wobbles their foundations because they've built themselves on this perfection, being the best of the best of the best, but they haven't built the foundation of what could happen if they don't hit that target. So
yeah.
it actually builds a good foundation within to understand that there's always going to be difficulties and things like that. um what would you say has been your toughest moment in your career so far?
Probably the injuries, to be honest. Um, I felt like I was the last time I did my bicep, the right one. I remember coming back into the changing rooms after the fight. I think it went in the third round, and then just carried on again. That was the second time it went in a fight. The first time was on a Sky show, and I really wanted to put on a big performance. I had the lad down in the second round, and then at the end of the second or end of the third, the left bicep went. Um, and then obviously when it happened again for the second time, I just even in the fight I couldn't believe it. Um, and then when I went back to the change of rooms, I thought this might be like career over. But luckily we had medical insurance at this point, and we had an operation within like 2 days. And I did heal a lot faster than the left one. The left bicep took probably around a year and a half to where it felt like fully healed. I had no issues with the right one. I felt like I was back punching within a month. So I think that obviously then like motivated me to get back training, get back fit. But when they did the second bicep, like for them few days, few weeks in recovery was probably the hardest. Yeah.
What do you think it was that got you through then, like that period?
Um, I don't know. I think because I'd been through it before, in the year previously. And obviously I think because I felt it healing a lot quicker. Then I thought, well, I could be back fighting by September, and that's what we planned. We were going straight into like a Century title fight. I'm at the stage in my career where even though I was been out after injuries and stuff, I was just going straight into like big fights. Because that's ultimately what I want to do as a boxer. I mean, I went straight into the Vidal Riley fight after doing the left bicep. I was going to go into Century title fight after the right bicep, and then when I had the elbow operation at the end of the year, I went straight into an English title fight with Hedges. So I'm not one to like shy away from competition or anything like that. I want to test myself, and obviously ultimately I want to win as well. And sometimes I do it the hard way, and if we're going to do anything in the sport, obviously now we've got to do it even, the harder way. But I've got good people around me. I've got good family, friends, and I've got a good team. And then that even likes a Peter Fiore always, I've got a good relationship with Peter. And he speaks very highly of me, says I've got a lot of talent and stuff like that. Even just things like that, it spurs me on. And if these people think I can do it, then I've got a pretty good shot at it.
Yeah, I think that that really does help. And that brings me to kind of to my next question that I ask everybody, which is um, the mindset you have to be a fighter. Like you have to be very, very resilient in lots of ways, not only just to do the job, so to get into the ring, um, climb through the ropes, and then walk into a situation where you're going to be punched in the face for 8 to 12 rounds in a professional circumstance. Um, but just the resilience it takes to build the career because people don't see people, especially if they're kind of more casual viewers, they'll only see the people who are doing really well. They don't see the story it takes, the effort it takes, the fact that you might have to work 3 jobs alongside trying to train for it, all of these things. Do you think that the mindset is something that you are born with, or do you think it is something that is built into you? So do you think it's nature, or do you think it's nurture, or do you think it's a combination of the two?
I think for me, it was probably it was built into me. I've not always, I've always sort of believed in myself, but not fully. And it wasn't until probably the end of last year that I really started believing in myself. Um, really started believing, and I think that was more because of my body. I mean, in this fight, I did really feel strong. And I think that's where sometimes I have a lot of regrets in my career. I have a lot of regrets in me previous fights that I've won, where I've had people hurt and I've had people down. I mean, I should have a lot more stoppages on my record. And I've always sort of I took the easy option of like coasting through fights and stuff. Sometimes when it's too easy, I take that option just to coast through it. I mean, there was always loads left in the tank, and when I watched them back, I sort of cringe a little bit, thinking, why have you not stepped on him there? You've hurt him. Why have you not stepped on him? And obviously that's where like I've got no knockouts on my career. When as an amateur, I had a few knockouts, some big ones as well. Um, and I don't know that is because I wasn't fully trusting my body. Where this time I did feel I did trust it, and I didn't think anything was going to go. I was trusting my hands as well that they weren't going to hurt at any point in the fight. So that's when probably the first time in my career where I was letting off like big shots.
But that must feel good because it means you know you can. Because sometimes if you don't have that trust, you have to build that trust. It isn't just going to be handed
Yeah,
over to you, and it has to be a personal journey. Because, I mean, it does help if you've got people speaking well about you to you, and it helps build that encouragement. I mean, obviously, we've seen it with Dave Allen recently, being around people who speak well into him and he's starting to believe that maybe he's a good boxer. Like he says things
yeah,
like, oh, maybe I'm actually all right, which is wild considering the career he's had. But it's
yeah.
it can be a complete detriment if there's that niggle in the head, and it does help to rebuild, be around people who feed it and then rebuild it within yourself. So with that in mind, like what would your favorite moment of your career be?
Probably when I beat Steve Collins Jr. Um, I performed really well. It was my first 8 rounder. They offered us the fight, and my manager I got it on top of the bill in Liverpool Olympia. It was a good crowd, and I performed really well. And I really did think that my career was going to propel after that fight, and it didn't pan out the way I thought it was going to be. But I did perform really well. I was really on it that day. But again, I could have probably stepped on it and tried to push for the stoppage. But he was strong that night, and I just yeah. One of them fights where like everything was on point. I mean, reflexes were on point. Me defenses were on point, and me attack was as well.
That's really good. Those moments where you feel like all your training's coming together and everything makes sense. I was laughing with somebody the other day, I think it was Brandon Glanton, and I was saying I remember the first time that a coach told me to do something when I was sparring and I did it, and I gave my first bloody nose, and it was one of those moments where I
Yeah,
was like, Oh my God, it all came together. Like you told me to do something, I did it and it landed. And the guy, and I was like, I shouldn't celebrate because I've given him a bloody nose, but it was the first one I'd ever
Yeah,
given. So I was like, come on. And you just, all the pieces like fit together and you're suddenly like, oh, I
yeah,
might, I might actually be good at this. And obviously my level is a lot lower than your level, but it's a good feeling, I'm sure, to feel like, it's all coming together in a really good way. What do you think the best piece of advice that you've been given in your either amateur career or pro career?
Do you know what? I don't even know. I don't know. It was probably just my dad with what he says about training. You've got to put everything in. And especially because I feel like I am a talented boxer. My defenses I do pride myself on my defense. And like me attack is pretty good if I'm on it. But hard. My dad always says to me, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and that's something that he's always said to me because I've got talent, and sometimes I've shied away from the hard work at times. Um, but for this last camp, I did put everything into it. Just unfortunately, we fell short.
I agree with that saying as well, because sometimes you're like, if you just got talent, you can get complacent in your talent, and then somebody
Yeah,
who's maybe not as talented as you, but works 10 times harder, can overtake you just based on that alone.
yeah,
And none of us are owed anything in this life. So it's just, what we put in, we get out. And even in a loss, it's not a loss if it's a educational journey and if you get more exposure and more people know who you are and more people are talking about you, like nothing's a loss. It's all part of this journey, which is going to propel you to where
yeah.
you want to get to. What do you want next for you? Like for the next like couple of years, what would you like to aim towards?
I'd like to become at least a British champion. I think it would be pretty criminal if I didn't reach them levels. I think I've massively underachieved in my career anyway, already. I know I've had my issues with injuries and stuff like that, but I think I should be right up there. And unfortunately, um, I feel like I have massively underachieved. So hopefully we can get back into the position where we can start knocking on the door. I'm hoping we might be able to get this Chev Clark fight. But yeah, we'll just have to see. And I'm hoping the big thing for me is just trying to stay active. And I think whatever comes next, I'll be able to show everyone, the real Nathan Quarless. Because at times I haven't, whether it's been complacency, whether it's been a little bit of laziness in the ring, or well, like what happened last week, is just the lack of speed in the feet. And I just want to now put everything together, everything I've learned over the years from the defeats, the injuries, the mental battles. Want to put it all into place now and really push on with my career.
That's why I don't think anything that you've done has been a lot wasted or a loss, because what you've done is you've just formulated all the pieces of the puzzle to get a really clear idea about who you want to be and how you want to show up. And if you hadn't
Yeah,
shown up in a way that you would like, sometimes we have to see things that we're not happy with to learn what we want to do better. And for you, if you're like, I know I can be better than everything that I've shown up until this point, it means you will. If you just went, I'm happy with
yeah,
that, and it's like a mid-level for you, then you're never going to excel. But the fact that you're looking at it all and being like, I know I've got more, it means you'll show more and you'll bring more. And I think that's a really magical thing about growth that people tend to avoid, is they don't want to feel the discomfort of what it feels like to look at themselves and be like, I'm not happy there. But actually to be able to look at it and be like, I'm not happy there, that's a
yeah,
really amazing place to be, because then you go, sweet, I know what to do. I'm going to make everything different and up level myself and go from there. So I think, I know it's not been easy, and I can tell, it's been a frustrating journey, but I definitely think there's so many positives that will come out of this. And we'll see it, and we will see a different version of you because you want to be a different version of you. And I think that's, or
yeah,
or a different version of you that you already are, we just may not have seen at full
mm,
capacity based on things you've
yeah,
said. That's not my wording, but I think it's going to be very a very exciting thing to see. I think the mental side of things is such a powerful part of this journey that people really really underestimate, especially if they've never been close enough to the process. I've
yeah,
been in boxing gyms for 18 years and coaching for two and a bit, and then in the pro world for the last sort of 5 months. So I witness a lot of things, and obviously having these conversations, I get to get an insight into the brain of like what goes on for you guys. And what are the big things and what are the things you think about and what are the things that plague you and what are the things that make you happy. And it's a really, really fascinating observation because it's a tough sport. You know, it's a very, very tough sport. And
Yeah, and it is.
but you guys
It
are
is.
doing it and showing up and showing. I was saying to someone yesterday, you know, as humans, we're not happy being just happy. We're happy when we're growing. We're happy when we have
Yeah,
purpose. We're happy when we're pushing ourselves. So we may think, you know, that 100th burpee, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? But you know that you've done 100 today when you did only 98 last week. And
yeah,
suddenly you feel like, actually being in this pain and this ridiculousness is actually the coolest thing ever because some people never get to push themselves that far. So I think it's a beautiful part of the journey to observe, and it's a beautiful part of the journey that I think people should take on board in their everyday life. Even if they're never going to be a fighter, because what you guys do is so much more extreme than what the everyday person can do, but they could take about 2% and add it to their
yeah,
life. And you're a good example of that, overcoming injury, feeling, even just feeling the difficulties that you've gone through and being like, yeah, but I know I'm going to be okay. Like, I know it's going to be fine. I
yeah.
know I can push myself forward. So that's really amazing. If you could fight anybody, living or dead, regardless of their weight category, so let's just pretend in a perfect world that you were in the same weight category, who would you love to fight?
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure. To be honest, just for a personal one, I'd love to. I'd love to fight Vidal again, just for me, personal. I've got a lot of respect for Vidal. That's what I was hoping for after this fight. Beating Hedges, I was wanting to go straight into to a rematch with Vidal because I know I can perform a lot better. I mean, I performed absolutely terrible. It was, I think it was one of them. I'm lucky I've got good defenses because it could have been one of them where it's like, you know, it was a hard night anyway. But have been able to ride shots and like take a lot of shots on the gloves and stuff like that. I can be a lot better than that. And obviously that was things going on in camp and stuff like that that weren't perfect. With like niggles and elbow. But yeah, I would have loved just to be able to get it on again, like fully, like a full version of me. And I think even the version I thought Hedges the week before would have been a good fight as well. It was just that Hedges was on the back foot, sticking his arm out, where Vidal we would have met each other in the middle, and ultimately that's what I've always wanted. Have like a real big barnstorm with someone, and get like fight of the year and stuff like that. And I think that version that box 10 days ago could have done that with Vidal. Whether we could, whether I mean, in my head, I believe I could win, but whether we did at least or didn't, at least we would have put on a good performance because that performance haunts me because it was terrible. Um, so yeah, just as a personal one, I would have loved to get it on, and hopefully one day we do meet again. But if we don't, we don't.
So I have a theory, which is that boxing is like relationships. So let's say you're in a relationship with someone and they cheat on you and then you break up with that person and you move into the next relationship, but you haven't dealt with the fact that that person cheated on you. You just jumped into the next relationship. And then what happens is you start checking this new person's phone and you start obsessing about where they are and everything because you haven't actually dealt with the injury from the first person cheating on you. You haven't felt that pain and acknowledged it and gone through it. So what you've done is you're bleeding onto this new relationship because you're throwing all the issues that you felt in that fight, in that relationship, sorry. And I feel
Mm,
like if if we don't let go, if one doesn't let go of the story that we went through, which is causing difficulty, we end up bringing the weight of the last thing into the next thing. So let's say you do get the Vidal fight. Let's say it happens. Do you think you would be able to put down enough what happened last time to face him a newer, fresher version of you that's different to the version that saw him last time? Or do you think you would
yeah.
bring some of it in?
No, 100% would be a different version. I'd detach my left bicep 6 months before the fight with Vidal. And I wasn't sort of ready to compete at that level. And obviously then I was going through niggles with my elbow and stuff like that. I have reasons of why I performed so badly that night, taking away nothing from him because he performed tremendously. I didn't expect what he brought, which was just, he over. I think he knew because I am a good boxer. He knew if he neutralized like certain things that um and again, I had a different mindset when I was boxing. In my head, I was thinking, I'm just going to go on the back foot and jab his head off and give him a boxing lesson. I don't, because that's because um, I didn't have the belief in my body that I could throw big shots and stuff. Where now I've got that belief, and I feel I have changed different things in camp. I'm with a brilliant strength conditioning coach. I feel stronger than ever. My nutritionist is brilliant, and I've got a good team around me. So, um, yeah, I don't think I'd bring any of that back from what happened a few years ago. No.
Oh, good. That's good to know. Because I think, it sounds to me like you're on a really good trajectory, that you've got so much to look forward to, that, sometimes we get sent these curveballs, they don't always make sense, but a clearing does come forward. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this next chapter for you. Hopefully see you in the ring with Chev Clark and see you in the ring with Vidal Riley and many more. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time. I always want to be respectful of people's time because it is the only thing that we don't get back. So thank you for your time. It's been really great to get to know you a
yeah.
bit
Thank you
better,
for having me on.
and and hopefully we'll be chatting again soon.
Sounds just as my phone goes to 5% as well.
Perfect timing. Anyway, Nathan, look, have a lovely rest of your day. I hope it's sun shining where you are, and I hope training goes well, and hopefully we'll see you in the ring in July.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
Bye.